So one commenter recently called my setup a working man's setup, and frankly I take that as a compliment because, well, it's kinda true. But it's also been a really long time since I've done this, and I have since moved to my current place, so let's go ahead and get the setup 2017 out of the way. Before I start running through everything in my setup, I want to go ahead and throw out there that there will be a ton of links for Amazon product pages in the description below in case you want to buy some of this stuff. You can look down in the description, it'll take you right to it, at least if it's still available or something equivalent to it is available on Amazon. So to go ahead and get started, let's start with the sort of center home base of the setup right now. And that is the computer. Now you'll notice that I have 3 screens. I have had 3 screens for a good long while now. And the two on the sides, the left one and then the right one over there, are 1080p Asus panels. I believe they're something like 23.9 inches or something like that. And then the center one is a 27-inch Asus panel, and it is a 1440p with a 75 hertz refresh rate, a claimed 1 millisecond response rate. It's not a full-blown gaming panel, but it is what I do my gaming on. The reason for that, and the reason I picked it up, is because it's got 75 hertz refresh rate, and it's actually relatively cheap for what it is. Moving on to my audio setup, we have a Rode boom arm supporting a Sennheiser mic. The mic is about $100 or so. That's the E835 microphone from Sennheiser. It's put on a shock mount. This shock mount is actually a Spider shock mount that was intended to be used for the Blue Yeti, which I have over here on my shelf. Then up on top of my monitors, we have the JBL Loft 40 speakers, which I just did a video, and I'll try to link that video up in the card above. Hopefully I don't forget that. But I just installed those. The speaker mounts I got on Amazon for, I don't know, I want to say about $20, and they're doing a super good job. I was really happy with the quality of those. I would highly recommend those for any speakers that aren't gigantic. And also, I'll make note that I'm still using the same 3 monitor or the triple monitor stand that I've been using. It's got decent cable management going on behind it. Obviously, it has a pass-through for my cables back there, for all the power and display cables for all the monitors. That hopefully I remember to link down below as well. But it's definitely not a glamorous thing. I couldn't even tell you the name of it. It was about $70 when I got it, so it's actually does a really great job for what it is, especially because these monitors aren't matched, so you don't really notice any sort of sag in it. Whereas when I had all 3 of these Asus monitors were all the same at one point, you could sort of tell that it was a budget monitor stand because they didn't perfectly line up the way I'd like. But with the 1440p display in the middle, it sort of helps me alleviate that OCD because I don't expect it to line up perfectly with the resolution and size differences. Next up, we have the Behringer Q802 USB, and this is just a USB mixer which allows me to use an XLR mic like this one and run it into this, which this goes to my computer, and I have full mixing capabilities as well as the ability to add in other channels if I want to. So this is super useful. I did modify this, as you can kind of see if I adjust the lighting a little bit. These used to be gray color on the side, which sort of matched this gray on top, and I spray painted those black, and I think it looks super stealthy, super nice since I did that. So that's a sort of a mod that I really like. Over here we have a Pixel XL. This is my daily driver phone with a D-brand skin on it. No way endorsed by D-brand, not nearly that big of a YouTube channel, but it's holding up very nicely. So I really like that. It's a great phone. Highly recommend. I have the 128 gigabyte version in case you're curious. Over here we have the G-Skill keyboard. It's the RGB. It is the first variant of the RGB. You'll notice that the multimedia keys are not RGB. And I don't even remember the model name on this thing, but it'll be linked in the description below, or the new version will be. But it's Cherry MX Red switches. It does a great job. I would rather have a Corsair one with the Cherry switches, but I'm also not going to pay to replace an already great keyboard. I just don't really like its footprint. I almost never use these G keys, so The software, by the way, on the G-Skill keyboards is not good. I would actually get a different one, and I'll link what I would suggest in the description below as well, which would be like the Corsair K70 or something like that. We have the LePi amp, which drives my speakers, and one of the things I like about the LePi amp is it has two inputs. It has a 3.5mm jack, which I run this cable to in case I want to plug my phone into it, and then it has the normal red and white RCA as well, and that's what I actually run from my computer into that. Over here we have a USB hub with just my wireless receiver for my G900, which I did do a review of, and I'll link that in a card above. Also have a Microsoft Xbox One wireless receiver for my controller for when I'm playing things like Rocket League. Now let's take a duck down below here, and I actually just used, by the way, over here for my headphone hanger, I just have a 3M, like one of those like wall clips that's a few bucks at Walmart, and that works great for my my Superlux 668B headphones. And when I'm wearing glasses, because the ear cups sort of press on the glasses, make it sort of uncomfortable, I also use just my Apple earpods, which I happen to have laying around as my headphones. Then, Velcroed under here, we have the remote for my my RGB lighting that goes down under. And also, you'll notice this is where I have all my cables sort of tied up. It's not exactly the most tidy thing, but you also don't really see most of the cables. We have for all the power, we have a pretty nice surge protector going on down here that has tons of outlets, and it also has a USB outlet, which I don't really use for charging, but it is all held on by double-sided 3M tape. I believe it's 3M tape. And we also have a couple more USB hubs that are sort of slim, low-profile ones down there that power my things like my keyboard, webcam, all that good stuff. And it sort of all runs back that way into the back of my computer, which I did go ahead and take off the side panel to my computer so we could take a look inside of it. And, of course, I've sort of gone over these before, but we have the GTX 1070, which I had to RMA the original one, but EVGA did a great job on the turnaround for the RMA, getting that back out to me. You'll notice the motherboard, it's sort of a budget option for me when I did this upgrade. I actually originally had an ASRock board in there, which did not pan out very well, had some issues with it, so I just replaced it with ASUS. ASUS boards have always been great to me. I've never had a single issue with one, and obviously your experience may vary there, but I just went with what I knew. I like the software ASUS packs. So it has red RGB lighting back, or not red RGB, but it has red LED lighting back there. And it clashes with my RAM and pretty much every other component. You'll notice I have those terrible ketchup and mustard cables going on because this power supply was the original power supply in my original build that I ever made, and it's still holding up. So being that my case does not have a window on it, I see no reason to upgrade that. I have this big, ugly Noctua air cooler on here, but it also does a great job. Again, no reason to really upgrade that because there's no window on my case, so whoop-de-doo. We have a 1TB hard drive, and behind the motherboard tray, on the other side, we have two 480GB SSDs, so they carry roughly 2 terabytes in this computer, just shy of 2 terabytes of storage, and that's more than enough for my games and everything that I do on that. Moving right along over here, we have my sort of my test table, rather. Right now I have this tower set up. This particular computer is actually just it's an AMD 860K processor with a GTX 10 or a GTX 660 in it, and I use it for things like testing Linux distributions and that sort of thing. It does have an SSD in it to keep those nice and speedy, but there's really nothing special about the computer at all. It's really there just as a test computer for me. Rotating around on the floor over here, we have the Dell Optiplexes that I recently bought, and again, I've just been playing around doing a lot of testing with them. Both the small form factor one, I've done some PF Sense stuff, which I don't think I've done a video on. And then I've also have the bigger Dell Optiplex, which I did a video on. One way of making a really cheap computer, which I'll try to remember to card that up in the above, but it's a great starter computer to base a very cheap gaming, sort of a console killer type PC on, and it was about $80, so I picked that up more out of fun than anything. Up top on my shelf here, I have some extra LED lights I haven't used. I have some boxes from some processors. I have an old Intel cooler that I just got out of my brother's PC because he was upgrading to an AIO. I have my printer in case I ever need that. Blue Yeti. I have some tools here that I use on a fairly regular basis. My Nintendo DS over there. Have some spare hard drives, more cables. Down below I have my Daydream VR and also this USB brick with this white cable coming up. That's usually where, when I notice my mouse is getting low on power, I just plug it in there overnight and it's good to go. Now moving on to my closet, I have a bunch of just boxes of stuff. And that's all it is just stuff. And then up top I keep all the boxes of all the products that I use, review, or put in my setup. And then over down here, and I'll rotate these doors on around. In here, we have my server. This is my NAS. And the reason I'm using this giant half-X case from Cooler Master is because of all the hard drive expandability it has. Right now, it just has a pair of rated hard drives in it. My usability is 2 terabytes. But there's 2 of them in there, so if one fails, I always have a backup. And it runs FreeNAS operating system, and that is an always-on computer. It also has a G3258 Intel processor in it. The motherboard is full ATX, so it has plenty of SATA expansion possibilities there. So it does a great job. It's low power consumption, even though it's giant, and it's just always on for keeping my network up. And that's where I back everything up to, at least basically. Okay, so this is my living room PC, and I was recently called an Intel fanboy in some of the comments from my last video talking about how we shouldn't hop all over the Ryzen hype train just yet. And again, I'll try to card that video up, and you can check that out. But this computer is the product of upgrades to my other computer. So we have in it, this is my original motherboard from the original computer I made way back when I was in college. They originally had an FX 4300 in it. Currently sits with an 8350 in it, running a single rad 120 mil. I think it's an H55 maybe, Corsair cooler with some white sticks of DDR3 RAM. I believe it totals at 8 gigs. We have my old GTX 970, which came back into my full-time setup or my main setup for a brief period there. And down below we have a Be Quiet 500 watt power supply, semi-modular. And by the way, I love this power supply. It's nice, it looks good, it is quiet, and it gives me more than enough power for this system. The whole thing's in a Define S case from Fractal Design, and then the reason it's all in there is because I like the fact that it has a large side panel on it, or a side panel window on it. And I don't really need a lot of drives in this computer, as well as it was on sale for a steep discount when I picked it up, and I figured, if I ever do a custom water loop, it'd be a great case to just have laying around. So it does have Fractal fans all along the front, as well as a Fractal fan in the back of it. So it's definitely running. Since it's on the carpet, I definitely wanted it to be positive pressure, and with 3 intake fans and only 1 exhaust fan, it is more than a little positive pressure, and I've noticed that has helped me out a ton with keeping the thing clean, as it's actually not too dusty on the inside, even though it runs on the carpet whenever it does run. On top of it, we have a USB DVD drive just in case I ever need a random DVD to run off of it. My SNES controller, which is a USB controller, and does a great job for things like retro gaming. This keyboard I rarely ever use, but I do play around with it some because of the small form factor. The main keyboard I do use with this PC, though, is the Logitech wireless keyboard here, and I can't remember the model number of it. I think it's a K400, but it's a great little keyboard for the price tag and for being a media HTPC media computer or keyboard, because it has these function keys on it that have media controls. I can wake my PC from the couch and it just sits on my coffee table. I have my Steam controller in here, and I have it in here because you can play some real-time strategy games then on your TV straight from the couch using that. Down here I have a PS4, which I got for free back when it launched through a Taco Bell promotion. Actually, my dad did, and he gave it to me, and I really virtually never do anything with it. In fact, it hasn't been on in months. And then inside the cabinets, we just have a bunch of cables. The TV, which I rarely use, usually it's for Netflix that I use it, or movies. It's just a 720p Vizio TV. It's 32 inches. There's absolutely nothing special about that at all. And then around here we have the couch, which is a somewhat recent acquisition that I use for the gaming on the couch. And I would like to upgrade this TV eventually. I just really don't use the TV all that much. So I don't really see a big reason to do that. So that's the Hoosier hardware setup for 2017. If you like this video and you want to share it, subscribe, like it down below, all those things are super helpful. This is a constantly evolving setup, and it will look much different by the time 2018 rolls around and it's time to do another one of these setup sort of overviews. But I'll let YouTube go ahead and queue up another video for you to watch from my lovely channel. I'm Shane from Hoosier Hardware, and I'll see you guys in the next video.